Good morning. I'm not used to that type of introduction. How about you, Natalie?
Yes, that was thrilling. That was so
incredible.
exciting.
Good to be with you all. So happy to be here with you at Impact. Not that the Natalie Portman needs much of an introduction, but allow me. Natalie Portman is a winner of the Academy Award for Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role for Black Swan. She is also known for her roles in films such as Leon the Professional, Star Wars, also Thor, Love and Thunder. As Dan said, she is also an impact off the camera and behind the camera. She was a director of a film, A Tale of Love and Darkness. She's also well known for her advocacy, a champion of human rights. She is also an author. In 2020, she published and released her debut picture book, Natalie Portman's Fables, that then became a New York Times bestseller and has also been published in Polish as part of an initiative by Impact. So just really delighted to have you today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Nice to see you all.
So I think Poland is a great place to begin because you have connections to Poland. What is your strongest memory or connection to Poland?
Well, my family is Polish on almost all the sides. My grandfather was from Rzeszów, and on my mother's side, my great-grandparents were from Łódź and what is now Lviv, which is now Ukraine, but was Poland then. So in different circumstances, I might have been born here.
Yeah, incredible. And pivoting to your early childhood and where you were born in Jerusalem, you moved to the US as a small child. Walk me through your early childhood and just sort of some of the way you grew up.
I was born in Jerusalem, and my mom's American, so we moved to the U.S. when I was 3 to be closer to her family and for my father to continue his medical studies in the U.S. And I grew up mainly in New York. We moved around a little bit, but I grew up mainly in New York, and just kind of a suburban Jewish life.
Okay. And when you think back to your early childhood, or even your childhood in general, now you're a mother of your own children, what experience or event maybe had a real impact on you and your life?
Well, I think getting to see theater as a kid really made an impact on me and really gave me my passion. I feel so lucky that when I was 11 years old, I had such a strong passion for what I wanted to do, and that I was lucky enough to have parents that allowed me to pursue that passion, that I started acting that early. So that would probably be one of the most important impacts of my childhood.
And one of your other passions that you've become quite well known for is advocacy, speaking up and pushing for gender equality. And I wonder, we have so many examples of women who have accomplished things for the first time, and yet we have many examples of roles that women have still not accomplished. You think, for example, about the presidency in the US. And so I wonder, one, how you feel in terms of the glass ceiling and if we have shattered that, and also maybe some practical advice for women, but also men, in terms of pushing for equality in a way that benefits all of us.
No, that's a great question. I think I grew up thinking that women had equal rights and that it was the fight of my mother's generation had already been won. And then it was a slow realization as I started entering into the workforce more and more, how much more needed to be done, how there was still huge pay inequity, huge opportunity gaps, and especially in executive positions that I wasn't seeing women being granted the same access. So it's absolutely the fight of every woman and every man to continue. And I think in terms of advice, I think something I learned from some mentors of mine was there shouldn't just be one woman in a room. One woman in a room doesn't mean that it's diverse. You need multiple, and both men and women should be fighting for that because once you get more than 3 women in the room, that's when it actually starts being more possible for each woman to raise her voice, to have a say, and to really feel some community, as opposed to creating a situation where every woman has to fight for the one spot.
And to that end, I mean, how do we get across the message that it's not a zero-sum game, right? It's not women's elevation at the expense of men. It is a rising of sort of both ships.
Well, I think that we can all just appreciate that talent exists everywhere. And so you're going to get more talent when you have everyone involved. And so, you're going to have more brilliance and more opportunity for people to have brilliant ideas when everyone has a chance to participate.
Mm-hmm. I want to pivot a bit to Angel City FC because we're talking about gender equality, and I wonder, well, one, I think when people hear Natalie Portman, certainly they think Hollywood star, Harvard graduate, there's a lot to think of, but how did it come to be that you became involved with a women's professional soccer team? How did that happen?
Yeah, this is one of the strange stories of my life. I was watching my son watch the Women's World Cup the last time, so that's 4 years ago, and I saw how he loved the women players the same way he loved the male players, and I thought, wow, this would have such a cultural impact if all kids grew up with female athletic heroes the way they do male athletic heroes. Sports is so central in culture and in influencing kids, particularly football, the world's most popular sport. And so, together with my co-founders, we started Angel City FC, a professional women's soccer team in Los Angeles, and to try and raise the eyes on the sport, raise the understanding that these women are playing in leagues at home, not just during the World Cup, but all year, every year. And it's been an incredible thing. It's become really, really popular in Los Angeles. We have a docu-series coming out on HBO May 16th about the founding of the team. And it's been really extraordinary just to see these female athletes given the value that they deserve.
I'm excited for the docuseries. As you said, it comes out on HBO Max, which is owned by the same parent company as CNN, so a slight plug there to watch it when it comes out in mid-May. I wonder, as extraordinary as it has been, what has it been like just learning more about the differences between female athletes and male athletes, both in terms of treatment, but also in terms of pay? I mean, now that you are professionally involved, what's that experience been like?
Well, it's really, I mean, it speaks to how important it is to focus on, because it's maybe the most stark contrast in pay disparity. The great soccer player, Abby Wambach, U.S. women's national team player, was speaking at a conference, and I was lucky enough to hear, and she was talking about how she was given an SB Icon Award alongside Kobe Bryant and Peyton Manning, and when they walked off the stage, they were walking into like hundreds of millions of dollars of retirement, which they rightfully earned, and she didn't know how she was going to pay her mortgage that month. And that difference is probably the biggest gap in any industry. And on top of it, like you were saying, there's a treatment gap where they obviously aren't getting like charter flights to their games, but on top of that, there's also the incidence of harassment and abuse that has unfortunately become very now we understand how widespread it has been in women's sports, from gymnastics. Now the soccer players have come out and said that they've endured years of abuse. So the issues are very complex and very in need of repair. So I feel very grateful to be in a place where we can try and change the culture and change the valuation in compensation for the players.
I'd have to imagine that having women investors behind the sport, women investors behind the team, should hopefully help in that initiative. I want to turn now a bit more to your career. Sometimes I think when you look back at someone's career, the path can seem linear, right? Like it all sort of makes sense. But I wonder, has it been linear? I mean, what was the level of strategy in terms of choosing roles, why you chose which roles, and sort of the path forward?
It has not been linear at all. It really has felt like waves, maybe, is more to describe the shape of the career. And, I've been working for a very long time. I've been working for 30 years now. And it's very much been, I don't know if this is something that everyone experiences, but so much of your choices are so specific to the moment you are in your life. And for me, a lot of that has been logistical, because I was in school for the first 10 years of my career. I was picking things that I could do on summer vacation. And then I had, another 10 years of I could be free to do whatever. And now having kids, I've had another 10 years of again, being on a school schedule and choosing things that I could make work around my family. So it's as much creative as it is logistical. It's maybe a sadly pragmatic answer.
Well, I'm surprised actually to hear such a pragmatic answer, because I think I don't even know if I would have realized that you would have been taking things like that into consideration, but it certainly makes sense from this point. I also want to know, how have your goals changed as you've sort of progressed through your career? And has it felt like the goalpost has kept moving, or do you get somewhere and think, all right, I got that Academy Award? I mean, walk me through that a little bit.
Well, I think that the goalposts are very much creative rather than the achievements, tangible, like awards or something that is not as meaningful as the actual creative process. The lucky thing about what I do is that it allows me to enter into new worlds and kind of learn about new spaces and experience new things and think about new ideas. And so that kind of exploration is pretty infinite. In how it's changed, I think now that I have kids, I really want to make sure that my work is nourishing who I am for my family. So I don't want to play a mom with kids, because I am a mom with kids. I don't want to leave my real children to go pretend to be a mom to fake children. So I think I look more for roles that expose me to things that I don't experience in my own life. I played an astronaut, I played a superhero, I played a rock star, things like that are exciting, interesting, different things than my normal life.
That stretch you in new ways. So having the career you've had and so much range and variety in your roles, what has been the most rewarding part of your career, but also what's been the scariest thing that you've experienced?
I think the most rewarding is when you have an amazing creative experience. I imagine there's an equivalent in other industries, but there's this magic when everyone is working together in concert. It feels like an orchestra or something magically playing harmoniously together. And when you get those moments, it's like nothing else. The scariest, is probably the attention that you get for it, because it's almost the opposite. It's like to do your job as an actor, you have to be very vulnerable, and then to be a public person, you have to have a thick skin and be kind of protected, and it's a very strange combination, and who wants to be like on defense, you know?
Yeah. In terms of projects that you're working on, it seems like you have your hands in a lot of different, certainly now with, Angel City. What projects are you working on? What can we be looking forward to?
Well, I started a production company a few years ago called Mountain A, and we produced our first movie called May December, which is coming out. It's going to be premiering at the Cannes Film Festival next week. So that's very exciting. That's with Julianne Moore, and Todd Haynes directed it, sort of questioning whether art can be amoral. And then we produced a series for Apple called Lady in the Lake that will be out next year, that deals with a kind of, I play a journalist who is looking into a murder in Baltimore in the 1960s.
Tell me about the difference between actually being involved on the production side versus being involved on the camera side. I think, even myself as a broadcaster and as a journalist, I think sometimes people at home think that we have a lot more editorial control than we sometimes do. And so I wonder, from your perspective in your field, some of the biggest differences from being involved in the production versus having a role.
Yeah, when you play a role, you can kind of just show up and do your job and not worry about any of the issues going on, which is quite a luxury, I've learned, because when you produce, anytime, you're the one everyone looks to when there's a problem. Luckily, I usually work in a team of producers, so we can kind of share that kind of troubleshooting between us, but it's definitely more stressful and more high energy, and especially to produce and act is very full time.
Yeah, and speaking of stress, look, I know you studied psychology at Harvard, but also, being a Hollywood star doesn't necessarily make you immune from the stresses of life, both internally and externally, and certainly a lot of stress these days coming out of the pandemic, with the war right now. What are some stress techniques that you use, or to sort of, during turbulent times to sort of even out?
No, that's a great question. I think everyone is under so much stress. You can really feel it in the air right now. There's so much going on. There's so many challenges. Of course, meditation, I'm not great at it, but I try. And music, listening to music, spending time with friends, being out in nature, going for walks. Those are all things that I try and do.
Can I ask what type of music you like?
I have quite across the board music tastes. I love soul music. I love reggae. I like rap and hip hop and classical, and there's very few. Yeah, probably the only thing I don't listen to heavily is country. Okay.
Fair enough. Wow, I didn't expect that to get applause.
Yeah. Everyone hates country here.
So moving forward, what's next for Natalie Portman?
I am, that's a great question. I am developing projects with my company. We have many films and television projects in development, but as you may have heard, there's a writer's strike right now. Yeah. So it's a little bit of an uncertain time for us because we can't work with writers as they're demanding fairly better circumstances with the streamers.
You're an avid reader. You have the Natalie Book Club. Walk me through some of the books that have been really pivotal in your life and also what you're reading these days.
Pivotal in my life, Elena Ferrante is a very important writer for me, as well as Rachel Cusk. These sort of I would say, feminist fiction writers. Virginia Woolf, of course, just really strong stories of women's lives told in new ways. I read your hero here, Olga Tokarczuk. She's incredible. Really, in that world of just brilliant contemporary voices. Right now, I'm reading a book called The Postcard by Anne Berest, which is, she's a French writer, and it's a sort of memoir of her family history, which is really quite beautiful. And recently, a book that impressed me a lot was Ed Yong's In a Men's World, which is an overview of, it's nonfiction of the animal senses, like amazing things about, it just gives you incredible wonder for the world.
We touched on a lot of topics, which I'm glad we were able to touch on, but I want to circle back and just get to know a bit more about Natalie. When you think back on your career, about maybe some of your proudest moments or proudest projects, what would you say?
It's funny because I've come to a point where all I want to do is impress my kids. And so some of my proudest moments, like my son is really into comedy. And so when I got to do Saturday Night Live, he was so happy and it was so fun for me. So that was really one of my greatest feelings, to kind of get to do that for him and with him. Similarly, doing Thor: Love and Thunder was so incredible for my children. Like, they were so into it. They wanted to come to set every day. It was so magical for them that was really exciting too.
Yeah, and I wonder.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I wonder now, raising children, if that provides a different perspective on life than you had before. And so I wonder if you could give a younger Natalie some advice, what would it be?
I would say to not try to make other people happy, but to make yourself happy. Because I think, I don't know, that's definitely something that took me a long time to get out of, and still sometimes I struggle with, is the pleasing other people. I think, being a young girl was something I was always interested in.
And to that end, you've been open in the past, certainly also about when you were at Harvard, about some of your own mental health struggles. Walk me through sort of the calculus in terms of, because as you said, it can be hard to be really vulnerable, I think, in a space like yours. Walk me through the calculus in terms of how much you feel comfortable sharing and what you don't feel comfortable sharing because it's what you need.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's constantly, you put your finger on it, that balance between what can be helpful for other people to share while also protecting your own privacy and also protecting your own needs at the time. I remember one time I had just lost my grandmother. She had just passed away, and I had to fly to go to her funeral. And I was at the airport, and people came up to me to ask for photos. And it was one of those moments where I was like, I need to protect myself here. But it was hard, people they didn't understand why I didn't want to. And it always reminds me that, that famous thing of, like, you just never know what anyone else is going through at a certain time, and just to respect what someone's wishes are.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like you are a rare breed in Hollywood where you're likable. Like, you're not, I mean, some actresses, whether valid or not, seem to have their fans, but also have people who just seem to not like them. Any sense of your likability? I mean, is it that you're selective? I mean, why do you think people seem to like Natalie Portman so much?
Thank you for saying that. But I mean, I really can't pay attention to that, or else I'd be miserable, I think, because there's definitely always going to be people who don't like you, and if you if you try and keep track of that, then you're in for a sad road.
I see. So you try not to put too much stock in whether people like or dislike you, so hopefully you're not sort of riding that wave of public opinion.
Yeah, you just need to be the best person you can be, I guess.
And then we don't have much time. We are at the end of our time, but just because you have your Polish roots, I know this is your first time in Poznan. What's it been like being here?
It's been very brief. I've been just here, but it seems like an incredible, active city, and I'm curious to explore more.
Yeah, as am I. This is my first time in Poland, but my dad went to school in Poland and speaks Polish, so it's been really nice to be here, actually. So, yeah. Well, thank you all for the time. Hopefully this was insightful or interesting. I certainly loved learning more about you, Natalie. I know you don't do a lot of press, so it was just so nice to speak with you.
Thank you so much. So nice talking to you.
Yeah.
So nice being here with you.